the universe is unbiased. So it doesn't matter if you're a negative person or you're focusing on bad stuff. Whatever you're focusing on is what you're attracting.
Live from Australia. Oh my goodness. It's been such an incredible journey. Getting here was only 15 hours, but it's just so awesome to be on another continent with the person I love, experiencing a new culture, and just being on the other side of the world it's such a weird feeling. And like now that I'm here, it's kind of just like, it doesn't even feel that far away. It's like bizarre. But it's just been an amazing journey. I have a friend in Melbourne, Australia, Tiernan. Shout out Tiernan. He listens to the podcast. And he was such an amazing host for us in Melbourne. And we traveled to the Yarra Valley, which is like the wine country of Melbourne. And it's just so gorgeous. It's like Tuscany of Australia. It's so, so pretty. And we obviously had lots of delicious wine. We went to the Shandong vineyard too, which was so cool. And we also had beautiful lunch on the vineyard. It was just amazing. And they were shooting a travel show there as well. So we got to watch the host do her thing. And that was really cool. And it's just been so cool. So now we're in the area where the Great Barrier Reef is, called Port Douglas. And it's raining, but the sun is peeking out. And it's very rainforesty. It's the rainforest vibes here. Really cute shops and really good little cafes. It's just really, really cool. I've been working on my Australian accent. Australia. You have to let go of the L, they say. Australia. And if there's some Australians listening to this, forgive me for butchering the accent. It's such a beautiful accent. So this episode today is really exciting. I do have so much to share with you from traveling, but I did a talk show interview a few weeks back, and it's finally aired. So I'm sharing the interview on the podcast, which is super cool. I was just blown away by the way that this whole talk show thing ended up manifesting. And so before we get into the actual interview, I wanted to just share that a little note on dropping the how, because I didn't know how I was going to manifest being on a talk show. A talk show wasn't really on my radar. But what I did put on my radar and on my 2019 manifestation list was that I wanted to expand my reach and my message. And I was open to all the opportunities to do that for the highest good always. And so I had a lovely, talented, amazing girl, Sarah, reach out to me. Shout out, Sarah. And she was on my 5-day live challenge for the Show Up to Rank Up challenge. And side note, we'll be relaunching Show Up Like a Boss group coaching program in June. But Sarah was on the challenge, and she emailed me, and she's like, I think you'd be great for this talk show. And it was just very divine and synchronistic, right? I wrote I wanted to expand my message, and boom, there was the opportunity. And so I really believe that like the best opportunities come out of like unexplainable circumstances in a way. Like they just come out of the blue, essentially. And so what I know is that there's a lot of you listening right now who have businesses or want businesses or are afraid to put yourself out there. But I'm telling you, when you put yourself out there, when you go all in, when you go consistently all in, you create magic. You create this vortex in the universe that brings in opportunities. And what people get tripped up on, and I see this in my clients and I see this in my community, what people get tripped up on is that they're consistent for like 5 days and then they're like, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. I'm not getting anyone. I'm not getting any clients. I'm not getting any sales. And that is where we go wrong. We go consistent and then we get in our head. And when you are consistent, you're consistent no matter what, right? Rain or shine, right? Like even if no one is on my live videos, I still show up. If no one's on your live videos, you still show up. That's the point, right? And you just don't know who's watching. Somebody might be watching that can get you on a talk show, right? to expand your reach and message. So the moment that you feel like you want to quit, I want to encourage you to stay the course. I want to encourage you to like go outside, take some deep breaths, and do something anyway that you don't want to do or that you feel discouraged by. Because the magic happens when you feel like you want to quit, but you keep going. That's seriously what has been the secret sauce for me. So, if you know that your success is inevitable, then what would you do? How would you show up? Would you show up anyway? I think so. And I think it's worth it. Because it's not about you and how many people are on your live video or how many people are liking your photos or how many people are looking at your story. It's about the message that you are putting out into the world, because that's energy. Energy out equals energy back. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. They asked me some really tough questions. Like they had me give like 4 or 5 questions that I wanted to be asked. And they didn't cover any of those questions. So I just went with the flow. I was in flow, and I was connected to my intuition, and the answers came through. So I think you'll enjoy it. I think that you will get some nuggets, and please share this episode with anyone that needs to hear it. And if you actually want to watch the video, it's on my Facebook page. So Ashley Gordon, Manifestation Coach Facebook page, or it'll be in Manifestation Nation. If you're not in Manifestation Nation, hop on in. If you're not in the freebie library yet, go to manifestwithash.com, get the freebie library password, hop on in. There's so many resources that I have available for you. So go check them out. I can't wait to hear what you think of this interview. Have an amazing week.
Welcome to the Badass Manifester podcast, keeping you inspired with high vibe content, bringing you the best manifestation and mindset tools, teachings, interviews, and answering questions to help empower you to get out of your own way and take massive action to make magic your everyday normal. I'm your host, Ashley Gordon, spiritual life and manifestation coach, helping women and spiritual entrepreneurs manifest more impact, influence, and income. It is my purpose and pleasure to help you wake up to the badass creator that you are. Let's do this.
Good morning, Philadelphia, and welcome to another fantastic edition of Race on Main Street. And please don't forget, you can check out all of our past episodes at raceonmain.com. We have a terrific show for you today. Ashley Gordon is going to talk all about some aspects of being a life coach.
All right, so let's talk about influence and what have you. Ashley Gordon. Ashley Gordon is a spiritual life and manifestation coach, speaker, and yogi on a mission to help women get out of their own way. She does a whole bunch of stuff, and podcast is one of them, the Badass Manifester Brand Podcast. So rather than listen to me drone on about this, why don't we get to the guest and have her tell us about it?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you so much.
Ashley, thank you for being here. It's interesting that it's your idea of helping women get out of the way. So it's
out of their own way.
Get out of your way. Get out of the way, Hong Kong. You're driving too slow. So you talk about being a life coach, working with women. How that I have sort of 2 parts to that. Why and how a life coach, and what are the details to that? And why did you think women? Like, why did you? I mean, there are some obvious reasons. Being a woman, maybe it just lends itself to that. But,
sure.
But give us some details.
Well, even more specifically, I help spiritual entrepreneurs, women who are spiritual entrepreneurs, who are creating businesses, specifically service-based businesses, and that's just part of my calling, is to help women. I am a woman, obviously, and I mean, as a life coach, you can really help anyone, but they say in business, you need to niche it down to like who specifically you want to help, so you can actually, speak to that person when you're posting or when you're marketing or when you're sharing online. So that's who I really enjoy working with.
Well, let me ask you, I'm sorry, just one other question, because you threw this word out there, which I'm not so sure, I'm not familiar with it. I'm not sure that a lot of other folks might be familiar with it. You say spiritual coach. Give us what you mean. I mean, I know what coach is, I know what spiritual is, but I think the way you're putting them together to create some type of help that you're providing might not be as obvious.
Okay, cool. I love this question. So the work that I do is, life coaching is deep self-inquiry. It's very much so digging within yourself, getting clear on belief systems that were programmed from a young age. So we do a lot of that work. And then paired with that, the spiritual aspect is I teach on manifestation. So using the natural laws of the universe, we're going to get into all of that, and using the power of your mind to actually attract your desired outcome. So once you clear out the old with self-inquiry and doing deep discovery work, and you're learning spiritual tools of just really the way the universe works, pairing that together, it creates transformation. So.
Okay, so let's go there.
Okay.
Let's go to transformation, right?
Well, let's go to the idea that there's an ordered universe.
Great. Yeah.
I
So,
don't agree.
okay.
Convince me otherwise.
So the way that I ended up here today was really synchronistic, right? I was sharing online, I was doing live video, and one of your employees, Sarah, saw me, and she reached out to me, and she's like, I think you'd be great for this talk show. And I had written in my journal that I would like to share my voice on a larger scale. So for that to happen in such a short period of time, to me, it was just one thing after another just lined up for me to be right here with you today.
So it's not some kind of order of the universe preordained plan. Did you, in saying that you want to have a larger voice, did you create the circumstance for all this to happen?
So that's the thing about manifesting and going with the order of the universe is there's no, you don't have control over how it's going to happen, right? So I didn't plan the how. I just set the intention. So I put it out there to the universe, and you're co-creating. So you're using your energy with this universal energy, and it's actually coming together it's like two magnets pulling towards each other to attract the situations and circumstances.
And I can prove that this is correct and
Great.
win you over on this because I know you have some doubts a little bit I know you a little bit better. So we have talked about, and this is just the more positive spin on it. This tells you what a big sourpuss you can be, is that there are black cloud people that we talk about. And they bring in sort of the negative. And what you're basically saying is, it's sort of like the same idea, but you're having these more positive thoughts. It's connecting with the universe. It's creating this more power, more likely outcome, rather.
I like that, yes. And the universe is unbiased. So it doesn't matter if you're a negative person or you're
Right.
focusing on bad stuff. Whatever you're focusing on is what you're attracting. So when people are complaining or they're wondering why one bad thing after another is happening, it's just because that's where their energy is focused. So they're focused on that, and that's what they're pulling in.
So it's funny that you mentioned something about this idea of happiness. We have met and spoken with other life coaches in various venues, and one of the things that comes back over and over and over again is the idea that they're happy constantly. It's almost like this artificial happiness, this shell of happiness that you can't get through. I always talk about it as the high school cheerleader kind of thing. They're always rah-rah about this, and it seems, like I said, somewhat artificial. You seem very, very different than that. It's much more sort of relaxed in terms of what you're trying to project, as opposed to forcing this craziness onto people, quite frankly.
Craziness.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's something that I've personally worked through. Was I used to feel like I always had to be happy. Even if I wasn't, people would be like, how are you? I'm like, I'm great, and I just wanted everyone to think that I was perfect, right, all the time. And I think perfection is something that stops a lot of people in a lot of ways from actually feeling their emotions. So yeah, I'm a human, I'm not perfect all the time. Even as a life coach, I may have tools to help me close the gap from feeling bad to feeling good, so I feel good more than I feel bad, right? And that's really what I teach people to do.
And so you talk about a process with that, closing that gap. Give us some examples, if you don't mind. What are just maybe a couple of things people can sort of think about and maybe even work on their own as they think about this?
Great. So one question that is really accessible is you have a situation that's triggering you in some way, right? Like before we were rolling, we were talking about the small moments and the small moments that cause anxiety or worry or fear. And just ask yourself, how can I see this differently? How can I see this situation differently? Because we as humans, we're like in this box, and a coach is there to help you see outside of your own box. So if you can get yourself outside of your own box to be like, how can I see this differently? Well, actually, I'm blessed. I'm in traffic, but I'm blessed that I have a car, right? So adding in gratitude to be able to infuse that with like a different perspective. And another tool that I help people do is if they are in a moment of angst, is to actually zoom out, like go all the way up into the sky almost with your awareness and look down on the moment until it's so small and so insignificant that you notice that it's not as important or as big as you make it seem.
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about this, Stu. My father-in-law used to always say, you know, I'd come home stressed, things like that, and he'd say, look, I have this rule of thumb that I live by. Is it going to matter in 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Is it going to matter in 2 hours? If it's going to not matter in the next couple of hours, then you know what? It might not deserve the stress and attention that you are putting into it. If it is going to matter, then you got to give it its due. You know.
I want to talk about dead people. So
you guys are awesome.
Well, the thing that got me before is not so. I mean, the obviously
Jonathan. Sorry.
Yes, the obvious go-to is let's talk about past lives. But before we get to that, you in making that statement, you talked about healing. Mm-hmm. So are we born in a state of pain that needs to be fixed along the way? Or does that happen?
We're getting deep.
Well, I mean, you sort of indicated that what you're doing mm-hmm. is helping people to heal. So is it a function of and you also talked about past lives, mm-hmm. and you said something about, you know, hurt in the womb or what have you.
Yeah.
Are we starting out with 2 strikes?
Oh, okay. So I believe that our soul is always growing and evolving. And so we're always choosing, I believe, what lifetime we are born into to get lessons that we need to get. I think that we're perfect. I think we're perfect now. I don't think we come in imperfect at all. I think that we pick up energy along the way that latches on in some form because we live in this duality of contrast, right? We wouldn't know the good without the bad, the hot without the cold, the up without the down. So it's like we almost have to fully experience ourselves in this humanness, we almost have to experience some degree of discomfort or pain.
Is there a larger journey that's taking place?
I believe so, yeah.
So
mm-hmm.
Do you have any information on what we're going for, what we're attempting, where we want to get to? Or is that...
That's the beauty of it. So I really believe that each soul is an expression of the universe, or God, if you will, or whatever it is you believe. So like if there's one soul, we're individuations of that soul. And how would that soul actually get to know himself or herself in every way but to be you and me and Oprah and Hitler, right? So we're just constantly expanding creation.
Okay. The Oprah and Hitler thing.
I know, right? But it's just
is
like...
Oprah the opposite of Hitler?
I don't know. That just came.
It probably depends on what side of the fence you fall
There's
on.
definitely
I hate to say. Are there universal rights and wrongs?
There you go.
So yeah, we're just creation expanders. That's the journey.
But a significant number of us need help,
mm-hmm.
and that's where the process comes in.
Absolutely, because we're waking up as humanity. People are realizing that they don't have to learn their lessons through breaking down. They're like, okay, I want to be a more positive person. I want to feel better in my life. And then they think, okay, let me search for a life coach. Or they hear my podcast and they're on my live video, and then they're like scheduling an appointment with me. And that's kind of how
we
it
should probably
happens.
take a moment to plug the podcast.
Yeah, what was the name of the pod? You give us the exact in your
Yes,
your best
it's called
presentation.
Badass Manifester Podcast.
Okay.
Yep.
And where'd that come from?
So my brand is Badass Manifester brand. And to me, it's just someone who's an empowered creator who wants to create their life on purpose, deliberately, who doesn't want life to just happen to them, but who actually wants to be intentional in creating their life. So one of my friends one day, she handed me a hat, and it had words on it, and it said Badass Manifester. And I'm like, this was before I even became a life coach. And I was like, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And she's like, this is what I think of when I think of you. I'm like, oh my God. So that was how I created the brand.
That's cool.
Yeah, synchronistic.
I suppose if that's
See, it's
some
not
Red your
random.
hands,
random-
red top.
a random
We are aligned.
a random crescent
Exactly.
results in a brand consciousness kind of thing. So tell us the other aspects of the brand. How are you expanding the brand?
So the podcast was the best thing I ever did. And I have a Facebook group online of a community of people who are interested in this called Manifestation Nation. And it's just a place where people can connect on creating or what they're struggling with or what they need help with. And I go live there all the time. I share there as much as I possibly can. I have a ton of free information on my website. And I also have courses, online courses that I lead.
Oh, that's cool.
So we have the Badass Manifester podcast.
Yep.
How do I get to that?
Okay, so most people don't realize that on their iPhone, if you have an iPhone, you have the podcast app. Do you have an iPhone?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, great. So you can download an app called Castbox. Yeah. And on Castbox, you can just type in Badass Manifester Podcast and you can listen to it.
So that's the podcast.
Yep.
Now the website.
Manifestwithash.com.
All right. And
Simple.
those are the best ways to get in touch with you.
Yeah,
So
those are the best ways.
From the website, we can go, folks watching can pick up from there, get in touch with you, do all the things they need to do to promote a better journey. Is really
Yeah.
what it is.
It's all about the journey.
And you know what's funny is because there's a reason why I have a picture of a very high-end Audi taped to my computer monitor.
Exactly.
So I can see it every day. And
That's another great tool. Is
Visualization.
visualizing what you want to manifest. So on my phone, I have my vision board. You can put it on your phone too, like create it online. I have a workshop for that if you need it.
all right, I just have an old-fashioned picture.
Those work too. Those work
I
too.
love it.
I did that though with my car. My first BMW in college. I was like, I'm going to have this car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You live up
And then
to
I got it. Yeah.
It's great. It's
Manifested it.
Well, let's manifest a few things in our closing because we are getting to the end. So I just want to say thank you to Ashley Gordon. Don't forget to check out her website, her on Instagram, all of the places that we mentioned to go to. Don't forget to check out all of our episodes at raceonmain.com, and we will see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Badass Manifester podcast. I love manifesting Mondays with you. And there's so much more in store right here. The best way to manifest love is to give love. If you loved what you heard today, subscribe to the Badass Manifester podcast. Leave a review on iTunes. Let me know how much you dig the energy here. All of my social is linked up in the show notes. So screenshot this episode, tag me on Instagram, and let me be part of your real-time journey. For more info on me, feel free to go to my website, manifestwithash.com. Repeat after me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. Go get 'em.